Hi, English 9. You are currently in your Sonnet Notes doc. You should also be following along in your Sonnet slides. I'm going to be going through the requirements of a sonnet. Let me briefly remind you of where you need to be in your Sonnet Notes. So if you are in your Sonnet Notes doc, which you should be, that was in the first part of this assignment. You should be in your notes doc. I'm going to be going through this information that's in this section right here, the rules of sonnets. I'm also going to go over sonnet plot. And then the last thing in this video I'm going to talk about is practice. Now, you can wait to fill in these notes until after I'm done, or you can fill them in along with me while I talk through the slides. You have access to all of these slides. This video is embedded in the slides. So if you miss something, you can go back and find it in the slides there. We will then complete the sonnet practice together toward the end of this video so that you can move on to the next section, which is the sonnet analysis. So again, I'm going to be working through the sonnet slides with you. I am on the requirements slide. The first requirement for a sonnet to be a Shakespearean or Elizabethan sonnet is that it has to have 14 lines. Those 14 lines are split into 3 quatrains. You can hear qua in there, just like quarter, quartet. Qua means 4. 3 quatrains, which are chunks or stanzas. Stanzas is the word for chunk in poetry. 3 quatrains of 4 lines each. And then 1 couplet, which is 2 lines. You can see the word couple in there. Couple means 2. So you have 4, 4, 4, and 2, which equals 14. That is a requirement of a Shakespearean sonnet. The next thing that is required of a Shakespearean sonnet is a specific rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme is the pattern of rhyming at the end of lines of poetry. So when you get to the end of a line, you should hear a rhyme that matches with. In Shakespearean sonnets, there's a specific rhyme scheme. And in order to figure out what the rhyme scheme is and to label it, we label it alphabetically. So the rhyme scheme for a sonnet goes A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. So you see the first quatrain is A, B, A, B. The second quatrain is C, D, C, D. The third quatrain is E, F, E, F. And the couplet is G, G. The couplet rhymes with itself. This will become clearer as we look through some example slides together. So, for example, when it comes to rhyme scheme, this is an example from Dr. Seuss, from his book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. So what I want you to notice is the end sound of the poem. Congratulations, today is your day. You're off to great places, you're off and away. Away and day rhyme. So I would mark this A, B, C, B. Congratulations and places do not rhyme, but day and away do. So I would do A for congratulations, B for today is your day, C for you're off to great places, but then you're off and away. Away rhymes with day. I would mark that B. So the rhyme scheme so far is A, B, C, B for this poem. You have brains in your head. Head doesn't rhyme with away, places, or congratulations, so I go on to the next letter of the alphabet, which is D. You have brains in your head, D. You have feet in your shoes. Shoes doesn't rhyme with head, so I go on to the next letter of the alphabet, E. D, E. You can steer yourself, again, doesn't rhyme, D, E, F. Any direction you choose. Choose and shoes rhyme, so I label that line D, E, F, E. That's the next 4 lines. And then the last 2 lines, you're on your own and you know what you know, and you are the guy who will decide where to go. Those lines rhyme, so I label them G, G. So you'll see the rhyme scheme over here on the right in bold letters, A, B, C, B, D, E, F, E, G, G. The letters label the word at the end of the line. Day and away rhyme, so the letters match. Shoes and choose rhyme, so the letters match. Know and go rhyme, so the letters match. Otherwise, it goes in alphabetical order. That is the rhyme scheme of a poem. Another requirement of a sonnet is the meter. The meter is the rhythm of a poem. We call this the meter because we usually measure the rhythm. Meter is the root measure and meter matches. It matters because it makes the poem, so we use meter in poetry to make the poem easier to read and understand. It makes the poem sound more lively and engaging. And for actors, it's easier to memorize lines when the lines are when the lines have a specific rhythm. So remember, meter is the word we use to measure rhythm in poetry. This is going to become clear as we look at an example. So a sonnet has a specific rhyme scheme. A sonnet also has a specific meter. A Shakespearean sonnet also has a specific meter. The meter for a Shakespearean sonnet is a collection of stressed and unstressed syllables. So what that means is a word like syllable, you can hear the first sound in that word is stressed. Syllable. The second two sounds, the second two syllables are unstressed. Syllable. We don't say syllable because then we would be pronouncing it wrong. Now, if you are learning Spanish or if you speak Spanish, you know about something called an accent mark. In Spanish, accent marks are really important because if the accent mark moves, it changes the word. For instance, papa in Spanish means potato. Papa in Spanish means father or daddy. So if you change the stress on the syllable, it changes the word. Now, in English, we don't use accent marks. We learn the rhythm of the language and we follow the rhythm of the language, but we still stress certain syllables. And if you changed the stress, it would change the word. So for instance, and we can mark these by drawing a swoop or a little U shape on unstressed syllables and a slash above stressed syllables. So a swoop above unstressed syllables and a slash above stressed syllables. So as you can see on the slide, syllable, stressed, unstressed, unstressed. The next word there is beware, beware. Now before I give you the marking, which syllable would you stress? Be or where? Beware, beware. Think. Hopefully you just thought about that it would be unstressed first on the be, stressed on the where. Beware, beware. We would not mark this beware because it doesn't sound correct. And then the last one, compare, same, unstressed, stressed. Compare, unstressed, stressed. Sometimes you have to overpronounce the word in order to hear the stress. So these are the stresses and unstresses. There are stresses on every multiple syllable word that you can think of. Timid, grocery store, grocery, grocery. You can hear there is a stress on the first syllable. Stressed and unstressed syllables are a part of our language. We just might not notice that they are there. But in writing, especially in poetry, that rhythm to the language is especially important. And in Shakespearean sonnets, there is a required rhythm, and we call that rhythm the meter of the poem. So in Shakespearean sonnet, we talk about the stressed, which requires the unstressed, which requires the swoop above the unstressed syllables. So if I was to mark a sonnet, I would put a swoop above unstressed syllables and a slash above stressed syllables. So for instance, this word, if you change the stress, it changes the meaning. If someone was to say, we rebel against the rules, you would pronounce this word, rebel. We rebel against the rules. Rebel, rebel, rebel. The stress is on the second half of the word. Unstressed, stressed, rebel, rebel. Now change it. What about this word? Listen to this sentence. She is a rebel. Rebel. Same spelling of the word, but when you change the stress, it changes the meaning of the word. Rebel, These are two words in the English language that require a specific stress. And if you change the stress, it changes the language. Here's another example. I like to present to large audiences. Present. I like to present to large audiences. Present. Present. You can hear that the stress is on the second syllable. Present. Present. But what if we change the stress? What present do you want for your birthday? Present. Present. Where is the stress in that word? Is it on the first syllable or the second syllable? Present. Yeah, it's on the first syllable. The first syllable is stressed and the second syllable is unstressed. So as you can hear, if you change the stress, if you move the accent mark, if you change the stress, it changes the meaning of the word. So these are stressed and unstressed syllables. Every that we speak in the English language has a stress and an unstressed combination of sounds in its syllables. Now, in Shakespearean sonnets, and in poetry, we mark the stresses and unstresses by using something called meter. And when we talk about meter, any group of syllables we would call a foot. Shakespeare liked this specific pairing, an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. Da-da, rebel, present, rebel, present. We call these pairs iambic feet or iambs. So I am, you can hear it, iambic, iambic, I am, or iambs. You can hear the unstressed and then stressed. So that is a foot, the combination of unstressed, stressed. That's one foot. In Shakespearean sonnets, you have to use, or if it's going to be a Shakespearean sonnet, you have to use iambic pentameter. And we're going to talk about pentameter in the next slide. So the I am is the combination of an unstressed and a stressed syllable. In Shakespearean sonnets, it's required to use iambic pentameter. Each line of a Shakespearean sonnet is made up of 5 pairs of iambic feet. So you can see in that word pentameter, penta means 5, like pentagon has 5 sides. Pentameter is a collection of 5 feet in a poem. And in Shakespeare's poems, he always did iambs as his feet. So iambic pentameter is a collection of 5 pairs of iambic feet. So each line is 10 syllables total. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? 5. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And you can hear the iambs in each of those lines. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? I'm overemphasizing the meter, but the meter is there whether or not you overemphasize it. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. 5. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. So each one is a combination of an unstressed and stressed syllable. We hear these patterns all the time. These are not unfamiliar patterns to us. So I'm going to play this sound to you. So listen to the sound that this is making. Do you hear that? Da, 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 da. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. It's a heartbeat. Some people argue that Shakespeare used iambic pentameter. He used iambs because they sound like heartbeats. And the most familiar sound to a human is their mother's heartbeat that they heard when they were in utero, that they heard when they were in the womb. Now, Shakespeare never came out and said that. I like iambs because it sounds like a heartbeat. But we can assume that that was a familiar sound that he wanted to use because he used it in all of his sonnets and he uses it throughout many of his plays as well. So we're going to look at some examples of what this looks like. On your screen, iambic pentameter and iambs in general are not limited just to Shakespearean sonnets. We use iambs all the time in music. So on your screen, you should see a scanned copy of New Americana by Halsey. Now, scanned means that I went through and I marked it. To scan a poem is to mark it for its meter. So you can see I've got a swoop on the unstressed syllable and a slash on the stressed syllable. Swoop on the unstressed, slash on the stressed. Swoop on the unstressed, slashed on the stressed. So in this song, you can hear it. Survival of the richest. The city's ours until the fall. They're Monaco and Hamptons bound, but we don't feel like outsiders at all. We are the new Americana, high on legal marijuana. So you can see here that she switches from unstressed to stressed at the beginning, and she has to then lag the song a little bit. I'm going to play the song for you so you can hear. This is a really common meter in music and in poetry during Shakespeare's time and today. Oh, go back. I want to play this song. Five beats. Regardless of whether or not you like the song, it follows a rhythm. I'm going to show you another one. So this would be considered iambic quadrameter because there's four iambs per line. Remember that the iamb is the da-da, unstressed, stressed combination. I'm going to show you another example of another song. This is Tricky by Run DMC. So as I play this one, maybe your parents' ears will tick on and they will hear, wait a second, I know that song. This is Tricky by Run DMC. And you're going to hear in this the combination of unstressed, stressed. So right here, we've got the combination of stressed, unstressed. And especially in the chorus itself, they do a stressed, unstressed combination, which is called trochaic, but it's the same idea. A combination of stressed and unstressed lines make the feat. So let's listen to this one, and you can dance. And it goes on from there. But the key thing to remember is that every single song has a rhythm to it. And songs really are poetry put to music. Every rap that you listen to has a rhythm to it. That rhythm, you can mark it with those stressed, unstressed syllables. It's a combination of stressed, unstressed syllables. So going back to, real quick, before we go on to going back to sonnets, I do want to just mention some other types of meter besides iambic. So remember, iambic is that heartbeat. Da-da, 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 da-da. That's iambic. There are other types of meter besides iambic. There's trochaic, anapestic, spondaic, and dactylic. So for example, anapestic is two unstressed, one stressed. Da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. You'll probably recognize this one. On the playground was where I spent most of my days, chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and all shooting some b-ball outside of the school. So you can hear the rhythm. On the playground was where I spent most of my days, chillin' out, maxin' all, relaxin' all cool, and all shootin' some b-ball outside of the school when a couple of guys who were up to no good. You can hear the rhythm there, 2 unstressed, 1 stressed. So these are other types of meter, but we're going to go back to iambic because iambs, that unstressed, stressed combination, was the favorite of William Shakespeare and is a marker of a Shakespearean sonnet. Now, in Shakespearean sonnets, so you should have been able to fill in your notes while going through this information. If you didn't, you can go back to these slides and pull the information that you need. Shakespearean sonnets were built actually very similar to his plays. They have a clear plot structure. The first quatrain, the first 4 lines, introduces elements of the exposition, which is kind of the characters, who is the poet talking about, who is involved in this story. Then in the second and third quatrain, we get the development of the conflict, the problem here. And then finally, in the couplet, we offer a resolution, or sometimes Shakespeare will introduce a sudden twist. So again, beginning, middle, end follows the same plot line as Shakespeare's plays, which we talked about last week: exposition, conflict, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. So it's a very common plot line. So what I want you to do right now, I'm going to go into your notes document. So at this point, you should have been able to fill in your notes up here. All of these notes should be filled in. If they are not, just go back into the slides and pull the correct answers to fill in your notes document. Now you are on the sonnet practice portion of your notes. It says sonnet practice when instructed by your teacher in the video. Fill in the empty boxes below. Pay close attention to the video for clear instructions on breaking down this sonnet. So quatrains and couplet. This is quatrain 1. So we would mark this as quatrain number 1. And you can mark yours as well. You should be marking yours while I go through it here. This is quatrain number 2. Now you'll see over here, you're marking it quatrain 1. How many lines are in a quatrain? Say it out loud. 4. That's right. Good job. There are 4 lines in a quatrain. So 4 lines for quatrain 1, 4 lines for quatrain 2. Quatrain 3 is also made up of 4 lines. And then the last 2 lines are not a quatrain because they are only 2 lines. So we call that the couplet. Good job. So here we're going to write the word couplet because it's the last 2 lines at the end of the poem. Now, over here on the right, we're going to mark the rhyme scheme. In order to figure out the rhyme scheme, we need to listen to this poem. So I'm going to read it to you, and then as we go through each line, we're going to mark the rhyme on the right. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Mark it A. The first line will always be A. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Temperate and day do not rhyme, so I'm going to mark this B because that's the next letter in the alphabet. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. Oh, hey, May and day rhyme, so I have to mark this A because it matches with the first line. And summer's lease hath all too short a date. Date and temperate, even though they don't really fully rhyme in our kind of our current day English, they rhyme. Temperate and date would have rhymed in Shakespeare's English. So we're going to mark it B. A, B, A, B. We are following the structure, the rhyme scheme of a Shakespearean sonnet. Next, quatrain. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines. Shines doesn't rhyme with date or May, so I'm going to go to the next letter of the alphabet, which is C. And often is his gold complexion dimmed. Dimmed doesn't rhyme with shines, so I'm going to mark it D. And every fair from fair sometimes declines. Declines and shines rhyme, so I'm going to go back to C. By chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. That untrimmed rhymes with dimmed, so I'm going to mark that D. Again, we're seeing the same pattern that is required of a Shakespearean sonnet. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D. Our next quatrain. But thy eternal summer shall not fade. Fade doesn't rhyme with anything else, so we're going on to the next letter, which is E. Nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Owest and fade does not rhyme, so I'm going to move on to the next letter, which is F. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade. shade and fade rhyme. So I'm going to mark this E. When in eternal lines to time, thou growest. Growest rhymes with oest, so I'm going to mark it F. And now we're at the couplet. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, that doesn't rhyme with any other letter, so I'm going to mark it G. Whoop. G. So long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Thee and C rhyme, so I also mark this G. So you can see that we have followed the Shakespearean sonnet requirement. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. Of Shakespearean sonnet. Now we are not going to mark the meter in this poem. You learned about iambic pentameter. I'm not going to require you to analyze iambic pentameter, but I do want you to listen to the rhythm of this poem to get a sense of what iambic pentameter sounds like. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. You can hear the unstressed stressed. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And it makes 5 each time. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. So you can hear the rhythm of his poem is that those iams, those da-da, the unstressed, stressed, and he does it in 5s, iambic pentameter throughout the course of the poem. The last couple of things that I want you to make note of, we're going to talk briefly about the meaning of this poem, but you're going to spend some time listening to a translation, an adaptation of the poem in just a little bit, so I won't dig too much into the meaning. But the key thing is that from the beginning of the poem, he's introducing the characters. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? So we have I, who's the poet, the writer, comparing someone to a summer's day. Now, before we jump into the poem, we know some good things about summer. Summer is beautiful. Summer is warm. Everybody loves summer. In the next line, the poet says, thou art more lovely and more temperate. This poet thinks very highly of the person that he is writing about. This person is even better than a summer's day because, and then he's going to list some things that summer doesn't have going for it. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. So May can get windy, and sometimes summer ends too early. Then there's some more negative things about summer. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines. What's the eye of heaven? The sun, yes. Sometimes the sun can be way too hot. And often is his gold complexion dimmed, or sometimes the clouds cover the sun. And every fair from fair sometimes declines. Oftentimes the summer day, at the end of the summer has to end at some point, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. Sometimes the summer is just going to end when you don't want it to. Then quatrain 3, this is where he introduces the major point of the lesson, of the poem, of the sonnet. But thy eternal summer shall not fade. You are never going to age, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. You're never going to lose your beauty, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade. You're never gonna die. What? How is that going to happen? The poet is claiming that the person he's talking about is not only never going to look old, they're never going to die. And then the next line brings in the main idea of the sonnet. When in eternal lines to time thou growest. Now, when we talk about lines, usually we're talking about poetry. I'm writing some lines, I'm writing some verse. So what the poet is saying here is that you will always remain in my poem, and therefore you will never die. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. The this in that last line is the poet's poem, is this sonnet. And so Shakespeare is claiming that his poetry will live on forever, and therefore the subject of his poetry will live on forever. It's kind of a proud poem. He's complimenting the person he's writing about, but ultimately he's saying, I'm going to live forever, and therefore in my poetry, and therefore you get to live forever because you're in my poetry. So you should have completed the sonnet practice section of your document. Now click next. Now you can go back to the slides and fill in any blanks that you missed. You're now moving on to the sonnet analysis section. You have some YouTube videos to watch and then some questions to answer down here. When you are done with this document, make sure you click submit and turn it in, and then you're going to work on your own sonnet. Good luck. You've got this, English 9.